Let's make this clear. You really think that these people who are battling for social justice, against discrimination, that they want some sort of Stalinist regime?
Well, they wouldn't say that. No, of course they wouldn't say that. Their policies would lead inevitably to it. And God only knows what they want in their heart of hearts. You know, it's the postmodern neo-Marxist types who are always on about power. Every structure is predicated on power. Well, first of all, that's not true. But if you make that claim, then you have to ask, well, why exactly is it that you're claiming that every structure is based on power? What exactly does that have to do with your own motivations if you happen to be embedded in a structure? Does that mean, what, are you somehow immune to that if it's the only game in town? Or is it exactly what you're pursuing? And so, you know, it's not like all the people who started the Russian Revolution wanted a bloody nightmare, but that's what they got. And there was a certain proportion of them who were perfectly happy with that outcome too. And so, no, I don't trust them. So, and I especially don't trust them because they're in a much better historical position to understand the consequences of their doctrines than people were 60 years ago or 100 years ago. Far better. We had the experiments. We ran them. Multiple countries. Multiple economic conditions. And the same thing always happened. It was complete bloody catastrophe.
So this goes for contemporary feminism. You think it's that dangerous?
There's lots of different kinds of feminism. There's enough different kinds of feminism, so I'm not even sure what the term means. The feminists can't agree. They can't even have a women's march together without fragmenting into four warring factions. So if feminism means equity, then I'm not in favor of it. If it means equality of opportunity, well, more power to them as far as I'm concerned. But usually it means something more radical, which is why the vast majority of women do not identify as feminists.
No.
So
the majority does identify as feminist if you look at if they are given an actual definition of feminism, but
it depends on the poll. Let's put it that way.
Let's put it that way. Yeah.
It depends. Of course, it matters if it depends on the definition, just like it matters whether or not I'm a feminist, whether it depends on the definition.
Would you ever consider
if it's a matter of equality of opportunity, then I'm a feminist. If it's a matter of equality of outcome, then no. So I have a daughter. It's not like I didn't encourage her to be everything that she could be. She's really quite something. You know, she's nobody's fool. She's no pushover. She's a tough cookie. And that's in large part a consequence of encouragement. I have a wife. I've had many female colleagues, many female graduate students. I've worked with women my whole entire life attempting to improve their career trajectories, and with plenty of success. And so I'd say my feminist credentials are beyond question. But that doesn't make me a Marxist. And I don't like ideologues, because they don't like to think. They just like to think that they're right, and they're not right, because things are a lot more complicated than they appear to be. They get together in their coteries and they pat themselves on the back for having unidimensional solutions to incredibly complex problems. And they go home and think that they've done something positive to change the world. And there's none of that's work, none of that's effort, none of that changes anything. So I'm not impressed with ideologues.
Let's make it once again very clear what you mean, what you are against. So equality of outcome, ideologues, what exactly is it?
Equality of outcome will do.
Yeah.
Well, and anything that smacks of Marxism.
Yeah, but Marxism, of course, you can also define that in various ways.
No, basically Marxism is the hypothesis that human history is the battleground between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, so that human history is best conceptualized as a continual battle between those who have and those who don't.
But we're now talking within feminism?
Well, it's changed into identity politics, so it's just switched from economic power to other forms of power. It's the same damn thing.
Okay, so
and the problem with that too is that there's an infinite division of privileges. So one of the things I found out about the Russian Revolution,
Please, Jordan, let's not go into the Russian Revolution, but just
well, it's important
what it is within. I know.
You asked about equity.
Yeah.
Okay, how many identities do you have? Do you think? Let's say 10. Okay, you're an oppressor on at least 2 of them. You're white.
Yeah. And middle class.
Okay, good, 2. So, when the revolution comes, you can have your 8 dimensions of victimization and your 2 dimensions of oppression. And you can bloody well be sure that you'll be punished for the oppression and not rewarded for the victimization. And that is what happened in the Russian Revolution. And it's an inevitable consequence of those sorts of policies. Because you can fragment people's identities to the point where you find where they're the oppressor. And as soon as they're the oppressor, even for one reason, then they're the enemy. And if you happen to be the sort of person who enjoys collecting enemies, let's say, and there's plenty of people like that, then one reason that you're the enemy is more than sufficient.
Okay, so it's identity politics within feminism that troubles you.
It's the presumption that the fundamental hallmark of human identity is the group. That's wrong. It's not only wrong, it's far worse than wrong. It's retrogressive. It's tribalistic. It's dangerous. It's an incitement to violence. It's resentful, and it's malevolent. All of those things. So, no group identity politics. We got it right in the West. The sovereignty of the individual. And the reason for that is each of us is a sufficiently complex nexus of individual group identities so that we have to be treated as unique individuals. That's the ultimate lesson of intersectionality, if only the intersectionalists had enough sense to think it through, which they don't.
So actually, you're a real intersectionalist feminist then?
With friends like me, they don't need enemies.
Yeah.
Look, there's no reason that the human race shouldn't take advantage of the talents of every woman on the planet. It's foolish otherwise. One of the best predictors of economic growth in any country is the degree to which women are granted rights, right? It's a great predictor, which is extraordinarily interesting. And why we would waste half the talent? Who in their right mind would possibly do that? So I've got no problem with providing people with a plethora of opportunity. The more the better. But the oppression narrative, the group identity, the insistence that structures of authority and competence are only predicated on power, all of that is toxic and dangerous.